learners, I welcome you all to the 58th lecture for the course on International Investment Law and the Environment. This is again the last week of your course. The previous 3 lectures you looked about how mediation can be a useful tool in resolving investment disputes that involve an environmental measure. So in this lecture, I'm going to introduce another concept which could probably address the tension between environmental principles and investor protection, and that concept is introducing appellate mechanism in ISTS. Do we have appellate mechanism? Maybe yes, maybe no. Why do I say it in a very diplomatic way? Because anyway, the dispute resolution is governed by bilateral investment treaties, and some treaties do provide for a bilateral appeals mechanism, including if we look at our latest Model India BIT of 2016, we do have a bilateral appellate mechanism, and some BITs do have it. For instance, US always believed in a bilateral appeal mechanism. In fact, if you look at the US Model India BIT of 2004, which stated that within 3 years from the entry into force of the treaty, then the contracting parties have to work out a bilateral appellate mechanism. And if you see the 2012 US Model India BIT, that takes it one step further and states that in future, if a multilateral appeal mechanism comes into picture, that would also be relied on, provided it is a transparent mechanism, and all of that was mentioned. So probably there is a possibility of some of the awards going into appeal, but generally if we look at it, ISTS is marked by incoherency. I mean, that is something that we all accept. It is like a given thing. So why there is incoherency? Look at the interpretation of umbrella clause where there is only one single investor, that is SGS. SGS had filed a case against Pakistan, Philippines, Paraguay, but the decision of the tribunals differ. I mean, the services provided by the investor was almost identical, right? Very similar, but still the interpretation differed. Or even look at CME versus Czech Republic and Robert Lauder versus Czech Republic. Same subject matter. Robert Lauder as an individual brought a case, and then he also sued Czech Republic through the company CME as well. Two different interpretation. So why is that a single measure, challenged under two different treaties, come out with two varied interpretation? So all of these was sort of, a constant criticism of ISTS. ISTS is a very unique and a cornerstone dispute resolution mechanism. In no other international forum, you will find a private company directly suing the government of another country. Right? That is something you won't find it. Even WTO is a state-to-state dispute resolution mechanism. ICJ, state to state. All of these international forums are state to state except for ISTS. So ISTS is unique and it's a very cornerstone mechanism in the context of international investment law. When there is so much of significance that is attached to ISTS, all these constant criticisms that there are varied interpretation somewhere puts a dent to the reputation that it has, right? So there is always a need for addressing these grievances. So one such initiative that was taken in order to address this was a bilateral appeals mechanism that you will find in some BITs. So that is there. Also, there is one other factor that sort of conveys us that there is a need for an appellate mechanism. What is that? If you look at the kind of arbitrators who decide these disputes, most of these arbitrators are someone who are well versed with commercial laws. Right? They may have experience in terms of international commercial arbitration. Now, even UNCITRAL arbitration rules were actually enacted for resolving international commercial disputes. Now, when we borrowed these, when we are taking arbitrators from the field of international commercial arbitration, are they really suited to decide a dispute where a government's sovereign power to enact environmental regulatory measures are in question? So, since we are adopting these concepts, the private law standards, we'd already discussed that in the lecture standard of review. So we are adopting private standard of review. We are borrowing arbitrators from the field of international commercial arbitration. All of these makes us wonder if they can really decide or contribute to the field of investment arbitration, where government's sovereign power to enact regulations are in question, especially so when these regulatory powers are exercised to protect the environment. Alright, so if we look at empirically, there is one study which says that 55% of arbitration, investment arbitration, was actually decided by a close-knit group of 15 arbitrators who come from European countries and North American countries. Right. So then, and sometimes these arbitrators, when they sit as arbitrator for one case, they also act as counsel for another case. They also act as expert witness for another case. So it became a group of close-knit community who in various roles were participating in ISTS, and that again sort of strengthens the criticism against ISTS that it is, it may be biased towards protecting investors' interest, because they all come from the Western countries, which were traditionally capital exporting countries. So how far do they will protect the sovereign interest of a host state, which is a developing country? That may be questioned. It's not necessarily that these arbitrators would always decide against the host state, developing host state. That's not always a case, but sort of, there's a possibility of such a question to arise. But this is problematic when only a group of close-knit 15 members who dominate the investment arbitration. That is definitely a problematic one. So in that context also, if at all there is an error in the award itself, then what is the possibility of getting that error corrected? We know ICSID convention under Article 52 provides for limited grounds under which you can annul an award. So you have to establish an annulment committee. So that ad hoc committee will take a look at the award passed based on the limited grounds that is provided under Article 52. Similarly, New York Convention under Article 5 and UNCITRAL model law under Article 36, they also provide for very limited grounds. We can see this in Metalclad case. In Metalclad case, some of the portion of the award was actually stayed by the British Columbia Court as well, right? So that was possible because it was an ICSID Additional Facility Award. ICSID Additional Facility Award gets a recognition from the New York Convention itself. So limited grounds of looking at the award was possible. But so it's sort of only limited grounds are available. So then is there a need to address this particular problem? Then I would say definitely there's a need to address this particular problem, because investors should get a predictable and stable framework, right? Look at DSU, Dispute Settlement Understanding of World Trade Organization, that also insists on having a stable and predictable framework. In fact, giving stable and predictable framework is also sometimes considered as one of the tenets of fair and equitable treatment as well. How do we ensure there is predictability and stability when multiple ad hoc committees have been established to hear investment disputes? Most of the arbitral tribunals are ad hoc tribunals, right? I mean, ICSID provides for an institutional mechanism, but most of the arbitral tribunals are ad hoc tribunals. When there are ad hoc tribunals, how do you ensure that there is consistency and there is predictability and there is transparency? The answer comes to the point of having a appellate mechanism. I mean, as of now, what we are doing is bilateral appellate mechanism, but the answer to this question is appellate mechanism, or having an appellate mechanism would address some of the grievances, some of the criticisms leveled against the contemporary ISDS regime. Okay, so how is it something that is really going to address these grievances? I would say yes, because even UNCITRAL Working Group 3, which is looking at ISTS reforms, is also contemplating the practice, contemplating the concept of an appellate mechanism. I mean, it is now in a nascent stage. UNCITRAL Working Group 3 was actually established in 2018, which are looking at the possible ISTS reform. And one of the reform elements that they have identified is having an appellate mechanism. Still, the negotiations are going on. So, what we are going to discuss is just the preliminary work that has happened in the context of UNCITRAL Working Group 3. Right. So, this week, the 12th week of the course, I had designed it in such a way that we can have a discussion on the latest developments that are going on. So, mediation is one of the latest development. Appellate mechanism is another latest development. So, in the next lecture, we will be discussing about multilateral investment court. That is also a latest development. So, in this, the 12th week of the course, the last week of the course, I am leaving you with the very recent developments in the field of international investment law, and this is something that may subject to change, right. So, I will also give you this disclaimer. So, at the time of discussing or at the time of recording this video, these are the latest developments, but in future this may change because the countries are currently negotiating this. So, what are the possibilities that that UNCITRAL Working Group 3 are looking at? One, they are looking at having a standalone appellate mechanism. That is something that they are looking at. And secondly, they are also looking at establishing a permanent multilateral investment court, and this comes from the EU proposal. I have dedicated one more lecture to discuss this in detail. So, in the next lecture, we will discuss MIC in detail. And the third possibility is an integrated tier approach, in the sense that, sort of the regular award, the ISTS, and then against that an appellate mechanism. An integrated tier approach is also there. So, these are the three things where they are discussing about. What are the things that they are discussing in the context of UNCITRAL Working Group 3? What would be the scope of appellate review? Is it going to be limited only to questions of fact, or is it going to be limited only to issues of jurisdiction, or is it going to be limited to substantive issues or procedural issues? All of these are being discussed. There's a draft provision that was circulated, then there are comments that were received by the states, but nothing concrete has been agreed upon. So, scope is something that they are looking at. Then what else is being discussed here? One is scope, and secondly, they are also looking at what sort of mechanism should we have? I mean, should they take advantage of an existing mechanism, maybe ICSID or something? So, if we look at ICSID, ICSID has a very interesting history in terms of appellate mechanism. In 2004, ICSID came out with a document, Possible Reform of the Arbitration Framework, wherein they proposed something called ICSID Appeals Facility. What did they envisage for appeals facility? They provided for a possibility of appealing the ICSID awards, and for some reason, maybe there was not much of a support from the other countries, so they dropped this idea in 2005. But what they thought was they would agree on some other separate rules, ICSID additional facility rules, and when there is an appeal of the ICSID award, this particular rules would be applicable. Most countries opposed it, and it was impossible to amend the ICSID convention. For whatever reason, they dropped the idea in 2005. They started the idea in 2004. The very next year, they have dropped it. So, even in the context of UNCITRAL Working Group 3, they are sort of looking at if there is a possibility of taking advantage of ICSID as an institution for providing a appellate mechanism. So, that is also being looked at. One is scope is being looked at, whether an existing institutional arrangement should be taken care of, that is also looked at. Then appointment of arbitrators for hearing the appeals, that is also looked at. What would be the code of conduct that would govern them, that is also being discussed currently. We can see all these draft provisions are coming up in these areas: jurisdiction, scope, appeals, who can be arbitrators, their code of conduct, then bindingness and enforcement, recognition and enforcement of these. All of these are being currently looked at, and very soon probably we can have a full-fledged appellate mechanism. or this is what is happening at the working group 3 of UNCITRAL. Even otherwise, if we see the newer generation treaties, they do provide for a possibility of having a bilateral appellate mechanism, or if it is a FTA, then in that context, some sort of appellate mechanism for multiple countries, right? So that is also being coming up in the context of and treaties as well, independent of the work that is going on in working group 3. So I do feel that there is a possibility that there could be an appellate mechanism, and actually we are divided on this issue. So with the introduction of appellate body in the context of World Trade Organization, suddenly there was a very stable jurisprudence that had come up. So predictability had heightened. So legal stability was there. So even if you look at the language of appellate body report in World Trade Organization, they would always write, we decided in that case. It may not be the same three appellate body members, but they would always refer to us, we decided in that case that this is how it will be applied, and therefore we applying the same. And there was also a mandate given on appellate body members that they will, any three appellate body members who are hearing the case, they have to discuss the same with the rest four appellate body members also. So that sort of a predictable framework sort of developed, and appellate body had really streamlined the jurisprudence of World Trade Organization of trade disputes that had happened, especially in contrast to a power-based dispute resolution that existed during the GATT era. So post-Uruguay round, appellate body had sort of, contributed to strengthening the jurisprudence of WTO decision that was there. And even if you know about the WTO history, or if you've read about Uruguay round history, then you would know initially they did not envisage the possibility of establishing an appellate body. In fact, there's only one provision in DSU that was there with regard to appellate body, that was Article 17 of DSU, Dispute Settlement Understanding, right? So that sort of was added, but it had contributed to the robust framework of the dispute settlement in the context of trade dispute. In fact, DSU was also considered to be the crown jewel, and all of the, it's been referred to as crown jewel. DSU is considered as crown jewel, and all of that we know. Right, but it is actually a sad reality. Now appellate body had become a defunct organization. So considering if there is an appellate mechanism, what the advantages that we've seen in the context of resolving trade dispute, that advantages we would also get in the context of resolving investment dispute, that is there. But the fact that appellate body became a defunct institution now, maybe that could slow the progress in terms of having an appellate mechanism in the context of investment disputes. So that is where I see that we are divided. At the one hand, we should acknowledge the benefits that we may derive from having an appellate mechanism, but on the other hand, especially looking at what had happened to appellate body of World Trade Organization, then we're not very sure that we could have sufficient support for establishing a multilateral appellate mechanism. So definitely the bilateral appellate mechanism is also something that could be explored, which are actually been explored in the context of bilateral investment treaties as well. So let's wait and see how this plays out, and if we can see if more and more treaty starts having this provision of appellate mechanism, that could become a standard feature of international investment framework. We would, I think the only time will tell us how this discussion on appellate mechanism will progress, right? So with that, I conclude our discussion on lecture 58, which is on appellate mechanism. In the next lecture, that is lecture number 59, we will discuss about how there is the proposal of multilateral investment court and how does that play out. Thank you.